There are a couple of reasons why the Australians respect the Indians a lot more. Number one is obviously the fact that India have won and retained the Border-Gavaskar Trophy for 10 years in a row. And secondly, India have won consecutive test series in Australia. First one that came during the 2018-2019 season, and secondly during the 2020-2021 season, wherein India, after being bundled out for 36 in Adelaide in the opening test, they registered comprehensive victories in Melbourne and the Gabba to win 2-1. And despite all the criticism that the Indian cricket team has had after losing to New Zealand at home 3-0, Josh Hazlewood, who is going to be one of Australia's mainstay come the Border-Gavaskar Trophy, feels that India are going to be a different beast in the 5-test series that begins on November 22nd in Perth. Let's just see what Hazlewood had to say about the Indian cricket team. Well, Hazlewood said that despite losing to New Zealand 3-0 at home, what it could do to India is that it might awaken a sleeping giant, so to speak. We'll see that when they come out, it's obviously better than losing 3-0 than winning 3-0 against New Zealand easily. Well, in case of India, I think India have always had those moments wherein they have been down and out in a series, but then they have managed to claw their way back in the game and at the very same time even draw and win the series. Let's just take a look at some of the previous instances. Let's go back to 2008 when India had toured Australia for the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. They were 2-0 down in the series. There was also a monkey gate scandal, but then India managed to make sure that they lifted a brilliant victory in Perth. But then there was a draw in the 4th test, but then the comeback that the Indian cricket team had was brilliant. Then secondly, India during the series against Australia in 2017 at home, they had lost the opening test in Pune rather comprehensively, but then they made a come from behind series victory and managed to win it 2-1. And then now in 2020 and 2021, after what happened in Adelaide, and despite the fact that Virat Kohli had to go home due to personal reasons, it was under the leadership of Ajinkya Rahane that India, despite having multiple injuries, they managed to beat pretty much an Australian side or a very strong Australian side to win the series 2-1. And that's why maybe Hazlewood feels that the loss to New Zealand might just make India a lot more hungrier to win their 3rd consecutive Border-Gavaskar Trophy in Australian conditions. However, Hazlewood also had a thing to say about the Indian batters, wherein he said that a lot of them have been out here. Case in point being Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, there has been Shubman Gill, who was the star of India's series win in 2020 and 2021. Then there have been bowlers also in Jasprit Bumrah, R. Ashwin, Ravindra Jadeja. But there are some batters who have not, and they will be a bit unsure of what to expect. And I think when he's talking about those batters, he's clearly taking the names of Yashasvi Jaiswal, there is a Sarfaraz Khan for that matter, there is Dhruv Jarel. So obviously these 3 players have had that experience of playing in Indian conditions and a bit of the South African conditions, specifically for Jaiswal, to be honest here. But then adjusting to the steep or the extra bounce in the Australian conditions is going to be a bit challenging for all 3 of them. And this is where even Josh Hazlewood feels that Australia might hold slight advantage over the Indians. Hazlewood also had his say on the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. He said that everything is falling into place. It's just a huge series. Every time we play India, it's right up there with the Ashes, and that's what I think it is all about. This is the comment that pretty much goes on to show that why Australians respect India a lot more, because it is, if we look at the early 90s and the early 2000s there, it was Australia who pretty much dominated India in both the Australian and the Indian conditions. But now things have specifically changed in the last 15 years or so. It's India who have actually dominated Australia, and that's what it clearly shows, that the respect is there. But at the very same time, Australia are a lot more hungry to defeat India. And last but not the least, Josh Hazlewood's teammate and pace bowler Scott Boland, he had his say on the Indian cricket team when he said that I think the way they'll structure up their team would be completely different to what you see over in India. And obviously, India in all likelihood aren't really going to go with those 3 spinners. But at the very same time, if you look at the batting order, Assuming Rohit Sharma does not really make it to the Perth test, would India really open with Shubman Gill, or would they hand a debut to a certain Abhimanyu Ishwaran? Or at the very same time, you would also want to make sure that how do you fit a certain Ashwin and a Jadeja into their playing 11, knowing that both of them are really match winners. Well, clearly India would be under pressure. There has been a lot of criticism. There has been a lot said about the fact that the template needs to change. Sometimes India would really have to play that textbook test cricket, which is actually required to win in different conditions. And that's where I think India would want to make sure that, they have a lot of players who can just play that typical test cricket, and at the very same time the likes of Jaiswal, Gill and Rishabh Pant can play their natural game around them. And in case of Australia, obviously they would be a lot more hungrier and ready to beat India. They would have definitely made their notes ready, and they would know that losing to India 3 times in a row at home would cause a big trouble. What do you think? What are your early predictions for the Border-Gavaskar Trophy? You can let us know your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to Sports Today for all the exciting updates and analysis from the sporting world. Until then, on behalf of my producer Shashwat, it's Siddharth Gulati saying goodbye.